Good morning, councillors. Good morning, executive. Good morning to those joining us in the physical gallery as well as to those joining us in the digital gallery. It's my privilege to declare the ordinary meeting of Tuesday, 21st of February 2023 open. And in doing so, on behalf of Scenic and Regional Council, I pause to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and across which our region is formed, the Mununjali, Wanjerabra and Yugarapul peoples. I pay respects to elders past, present and emerging and thank them for their generosity of spirit to welcome us in shaping the future of our region together. Also congratulate them on their continued nurturing of culture and respect and celebrate their ongoing connection to country. Councillors, I note we have a full attendance of the executive and a full attendance of councillors. And we are joined this morning for prayers by Pastor Josh Cox via phone. And Josh, thank you for joining us, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm just going to read from Psalm 34, just one verse, and particularly I'll give you the context of that. It's we've had, as with all of us, we deal with grief and suffering, I'm sure, from time to time, if not for some of us at the moment. But just in the last couple of weeks, a couple of our young fellas from our region have passed away. I knew both of them quite well, 20-year-olds and a 38-year-old. And so the verse I want to read is Psalm 34. And I guess a little bit of a different tack, but I think helpful nonetheless. The verse is, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." So just acknowledging that there are those who are saddened in these just a couple of recent events, and but also we all face that at some time or other. And so let me pray and in that line of thinking, but also just pray for the meeting as well. So let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity of just at the beginning of this meeting to begin with prayer, Lord. We thank you for this verse from Psalm 34 and the promise that you are near to the brokenhearted and you say the crushed in spirit. So, Lord, we rest ourselves in you as we think of those who are grieving in our community, Lord, and there are others not even connected with these two families. But Lord, have their own grief and sorrow and sadness, and thank you, Lord, for this promise, and we hold on to that, and we pray that people would know your strengthening power in their lives. Lord, we want to commit to you this meeting. We want to ask you, Lord, that you'll guide and direct the proceedings and in the discussions and the decisions made, and we ask it with your wisdom and understanding, and we pray it in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Josh. I'm going to break with process and respectfully ask if you could just stay with us for a moment digitally and listen in, and I may invite you to share another prayer with us momentarily, and you'll understand when I move to announcements, which is item 6 on our agenda. And councillors, I'd ask you for your support in acknowledging the recent devastation experienced by, firstly, our neighbours in New Zealand, particularly resulting from the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle, and also further afield with the catastrophic impacts of earthquakes in Turkey and surrounding countries. I note that further significant tremors were reported overnight. Our region is home to many residents with family origins in these affected areas. Many also still have relatives in these areas. Also offer our appreciation and support to the Australian teams who have gone to New Zealand to provide much needed assistance at this challenging time. On behalf of Scenic and Regional Council, I ask you to join me in offering our heartfelt thoughts and prayers of support for our residents and also their families so horribly impacted. Josh, I wonder if you could lead us in prayer.
Absolutely. More than happy to do that. We'll do that. Lord Heavenly Father, as we think further afield from our own backyard and the grief and sorrow that we share, we acknowledge, dear Lord, that this is on a large scale, and at times we feel incredibly overwhelmed by the devastation that's occurred in Turkey and Syria, Lord, with the massive loss of life. 45,000 plus now, officially at least, Lord, and climbing. And so, Lord, we struggle, Lord, to get our heads around those numbers. And Lord, yet, as we've seen some images, even in recent days, Lord, of people still being found, we can only marvel, Lord, of the resilience of humanity, but also of the great heartache that has occurred. And so we pray to you, Heavenly Father, for continued support from other countries, Lord, in personnel and in financial support of provisions and practical distribution, dear Lord, of these, particularly the remote areas and those that don't see as many and as much attention, Lord. And so we pray, Heavenly Father, for all these efforts. We ask, dear Lord, they'll be quick and swift, because we know they're still pulling live people out. And we ask, dear Heavenly Father, you'll guide and direct that, help them to be the most efficient they can, not be caught up in any sort of bureaucracy. But we ask, dear Heavenly Father, Lord, for your continued hand upon all the recovery efforts. And Lord, for all those who are grieving, and some just extraordinary stories of whole families, 80 people lost in a family. And Lord, our hearts go out to them, and we want to pray to you, Lord, for your comfort and your care upon them. And we think, Lord, too, of all that is happening and has happened in New Zealand, Lord. And for many of us, of course, with ties there, if not family or friends or people we know, we ask, dear Heavenly Father, for those who are still missing, unaccounted for, and as families become continuing and increasingly concerned about that, we ask for your peace and comfort, and ask, dear Lord, that you'll guide and direct the searches and the rescue efforts as they seek to make good use of time and equipment and ability, Lord, to look and search and find. We pray, Lord, we'll still continue to hear amazing stories, Lord, of recovery, and we ask, dear Heavenly Father, for those who have been going and have gone from our own nation, Lord, in support and to bring expertise. And so we ask, Lord, for your guidance and direction and your safety upon them as well. And Lord, we just commit these two situations to you. They're forefront on our minds. And Lord, we thank you, Heavenly Father, for the opportunity of just praying in this moment. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Josh. Much appreciated.
No worries. More than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I would share a further announcement, whilst that's been quite a sombre announcement. Nonetheless, there are still positives occurring, and it is appropriate this morning to enjoy the pleasure of announcing that the Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular, which is considered one of Queensland's most significant events, has added another accolade to its merits. On behalf of Council and the community, I want to congratulate organisers of the Scenic Rim Clydesdale Festival 2022 event, following their silver win in the category of Best Festival Event in the Grey Nomad Awards, announced in an online presentation on Friday night, the 17th of February. Scenic Rim Regional Council, we're pleased to have been part of the success of this landmark event. We provided $10,000 to support the staging of the two-day festival in June 2022. Considered the richest Clydesdale event in the Southern Hemisphere, annually it showcases the heritage and history of the Clydesdale breed, which was used by pioneering Scottish and German families to transform the Scenic Rim's bushland into a leading agricultural area. Over 2 days, it features a range of heavy horse competitions and driving displays, demonstrations of rare trades by harness makers, blacksmiths and wheelwrights, workshops, working dog and horse displays, rides, live entertainment, markets and traditional Scottish food. Attracting competitors, participants and spectators from around Australia as well as overseas, the Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular continues to grow, adding some $2.3 million to the regional economy. The Grey Nomad Awards are presented to the events, attractions and destinations which best cater for mature age visitors and are judged by mature age tourism professionals, including those who have lived the Grey Nomad lifestyle. Now, for those wanting to partake in this award-winning event, tickets are now on sale for the Clydesdale Spectacular 2023, which will be held again in the Boonah Showgrounds on the 17th and 18th of June 2023. Surely an event not to be missed. Councillors, I'm also aware that Councillor Swamborough has asked to present a separate announcement and hand the floor to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have a written announcement which I'd like to read, and I'll distribute that announcement to all councillors on concluding. Councillors, I wish to announce that under section 1621F of the Local Government Act 2009, I hereby inform the Chief Executive Officer in writing of my intention to resign effective today when I leave the premises. I will not be staying for the remainder of the meeting. And if I can pass that note over to the Chief Executive Officer. This is a decision I am most reluctant to make, but I have regretfully come to the view that I am unable to provide the level of service to my constituents that they deserve. One issue that has precipitated my decision is this: the unprecedented level of internally generated OAA complaints, 70 plus at last count, and I might add I received another one yesterday, that have been levelled against me. Responding to these complaints consumes an inordinate amount of my time and as a consequence compromises my capacity to effectively carry out my duties as Scenic Rim Councillor. It is in the public interest that I resign now to trigger a by-election in my division under section 166(1)(b) of the Local Government Act and section 161(4) to allow a yet unencumbered person to provide the strongest representation that Tamborine Mountain, Division 1, the largest population centre in the Scenic Rim, deserves. It has been an honour to represent my division. I am proud of what has been achieved. It has also been pleasing to provide a voice to many other deserving causes extending across the wider Scenic Rim region from Boona to Beaudesert. I worked very hard with many of my council colleagues in an endeavour to achieve higher levels of performance, greater efficiency, lower rates and improved levels of customer satisfaction, but above all, transparency in decision making. All these issues are still very much a work in progress with much more to do. These efforts have not been received well by some of my elected colleagues and the administration. I sincerely believe the culture of the organisation needs transformational change, and this most likely will occur only at the political level. Tamborine Mountain voted in a household plebiscite by a supermajority of 65% to move to the Gold Coast, and regrettably, this has not been able to be achieved for the 2024 elections. It will now be a long game and move to the political level for the next elections in 2024 to give a voice to the majority of residents. The household plebiscite did, however, provide evidence that the population of Tamborine Mountain in Division 1 and 2 believed their community of interest was not with Scenic Rim but the Gold Coast, and they expected council to do a lot better and be fairer in the matter of rates, levels of service, efficiency and capital expenditure. My career in local government began in 1977 as a labourer on a construction gang in the Ipswich City Council during my university holidays, and my first full-time position as a trainee local government clerk commenced in 1979. Since then, I have worked in virtually all departments of local government. This includes 25 years in executive management positions in some large councils in South East Queensland and Northern New South Wales over a period of 42 years, including the former Beaudesert Shire Council as Corporate Services Director for a continuous 16 years of service. Today that career ends, and with it the opportunity to use my expertise and local knowledge for the benefits of all of the residents of the Scenic Rim. I say farewell today and offer my assistance and best wishes to whoever the voters choose to be the next Tamborine Mountain Councillor. I would like to thank my constituents, residents of the Scenic Rim, colleagues and former colleagues, persons who have assisted me in carrying out my duties as councillor. I move that this announcement be tabled and my resignation be received. And if you can hand that around.
Thank you, Councillor. So moved. Councillors, I open the floor. Is anyone wishing to speak? That's copies for everyone, I think. This. Anyone wishing to speak to the councillors' motion so tabled?
I'm happy to wait until after you've spoken, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Sorry, councillor, I've opened the floor for councillors to speak. There's a motion on the floor. I never speak first on a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank, or through the chair, I'd like to thank Councillor Swanborough for his efforts over the last 3 years. It has been challenging. We've agreed on a lot of things. We've also disagreed on a few things rather strenuously between each other, but it's unfortunate that it has come to this, that he's felt that resigning is the only option that he's left with, given the mountainous number of complaints that have been sent to the OIA. So I thank him for his friendship over the last 3 years and wish him all the best.
Thank you. Open the floor, other councillors. Councillor Chalk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to thank Councillor Swanborough for his friendship and his support at a professional level. As a new councillor, he was good to lean on for advice. I've thanked him for working with me on certain issues and supporting things that I've found important for my residents. You've done a lot of service over the years, and it should be appreciated by your residents, and you've worked very tirelessly. It is a sad day. It's tough to see you have to do this, but I do wish you all the best in your retirement and hope you really enjoy it. And you can go down to your unit in the Gold Coast when it's ready and really enjoy life and live it well. So thank you, and stay in touch, and all the best.
Councillor West.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Councillor Swanborough, I just want to wish you all the very best in your next adventure in life, and thank you so very much for the contributions that you have made, not only to the Scenic Room Regional Council, but also to all our residents throughout the area. Thank you, and best wishes to you.
Councillor McGuinness.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Swanborough, it is a sad day that people find they have to retire. It's a bit ironic. I had a conversation with someone this morning about the effect that political life does have on people, and whether that's from the Prime Minister to the President of the US and whatever, and down to our level, it does affect us, and it does, and sometimes unknowingly too. There is a lot of pressure there at times, and I'm saddened that there has been too much pressure that you find you have to resign. But I can understand your predicament, and I wish you all the best in the future. I think you've represented the view of your constituents very well. I don't agree with that view a number of times, but that's what this chamber should be about, and we're, without fear nor favour, we actually we can make sure that all opinions are put on the table and for us to decide. I think you've done that very well for your constituents, and I thank you for your efforts, and and hopefully you have time to put your feet up and relax a little bit, and all the best to you and your family moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Swanborough, I acknowledge the decision that you have made, and I would also acknowledge your contribution for your community, for what you believe is the right way to progress in this term of council. We have not agreed on all things. However, I respect that you have your certain view, as do others, and as Councillor McGuinness mentioned, it is important that we do have the opportunity to debate different views in this chamber. So I wish you well in your future.
Thank you. Councillor Swanborough, I can only imagine how challenging today has been for you to reach that decision, and acknowledge the thought that you've put into reaching that point in your life. I wish you the best for the future. There are always turning points in life that take us down other roads. I'm sure you're at a point where you will enjoy perhaps the freedom away from the constraints of what is now a very rigorous legislative environment that has changed quite significantly in recent time and become confronting for all. I think, to Councillor McGuinness's point, it's become far more onerous on local government than it has on any other level of government. And I appreciate your thoughtfulness to the concerns of your constituents in making your decision. I wish you all the best for the future, for good health and a peaceful next phase of life. Councillors, unless you wish to speak further, Councillor Swanborough, to your motion.
Thank you for the kind words for everybody. There's a part of me that's been doing this for a long time, and I will miss it, but I do know this is the best decision for myself and for my family, and it's not as if I'm going anywhere. I'll still be living in my community as I have done for the last 37 years, and I'll be taking a keen interest in what's happening around this chamber in any case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, before we put it to the vote, the CEO would like to share a few words on behalf of the organisation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, just a brief note of thanks from the organisation's perspective, and from the organisation's perspective, all the best with what you're going to be doing in the future, and good luck to you and your family as well.
Thank you. I now put the vote those in favour of receiving that resignation. Don't need to, procedural. That's carried unanimously. Councillor, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good day.
Could
Depart the meeting.
Could
and,
we just have a
get on
break
with the
for a minute
business.
from the meeting, and to which
I'll just, councillors, we'll just take a short adjournment for 5 minutes for those listening in. We'll adjourn for 5 minutes to allow that. Thank you. Thank you to those in the gallery and the digital gallery. Councillors, we recommence the meeting, and we are at item 7 of the agenda. I have...
Mr.
sorry,
Yeah,
I'll go back to
declarations.
5.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was not advised of any declarations for today's meeting. No? So, for conflicts of any form. So, we move on then. We have no deputations, no petitions. Come to item 8, councillors. There's a recommendation before you that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 7th of February 2023 be adopted. You've had the access to these. I seek a mover. Councillor McConnell. Any discussion to those minutes, councillors? Not a seconder. Councillor West, you wish to speak further? Councillor McConnell?
No, thank you.
Anyone else seeking leave to speak additionally? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. CEO, are there any matters arising from those minutes to...
Mayor, I'll ask the General Manager to ask those issues.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CEO. Good morning to all of you. There were a couple of outstanding items or questions taken on notice at the last meeting. One was with regard to the maintenance of Mount Flinders Road, being a boundary road between Scenic Rim Regional Council and Ipswich City Council. I can inform the Chamber that there is a memorandum of understanding between Ipswich City Council and Scenic Rim Regional Council, whereby within that memorandum it outlines who is responsible for what activities on each of the roads that form boundary roads. And in this particular case, Mount Flinders Road, for both the sealed and unsealed sections, are maintained by Ipswich City Council. Secondly, there were 2 other questions with regard to whether Brookland Road and also Teviottville Road would form part of regional road and transport, a local road of regional significance. Under the current criteria, they may not necessarily form a local road of regional significance. However, if you look at the expanded criteria by which a road can be assessed, they certainly may be into the future. Why I say it that way is because within the Regional Roads and Transport Group, they get to choose as a group what criteria is used to assess a road for its whether it be a local road of regional significance or not. And until this work is actually carried out, we're not in a position to be able to say one way or the other. So, as noted at the report when presented, item 2 of that recommendation from that report outlined that a future report would be provided to Council, and certainly there will be an update provided either way for the status of future status of those 2 roads.
Thank you. No further matters. Any other matters, councillors? If not, we move forward then to part 10 of today's agenda, and we move to item 10.1, which is the Quarter 2 Progress Report. CEO, you...
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll go to the General Manager.
Might need to pull your microphone closer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors, my fellow executives, officers, and to those listening in the gallery, both here and digitally. I'm pleased to present today the Quarter 2 Progress Report against the Operational Plan 2022 to 2023. You can there's certainly significant evidence of all of the hard work of across the organisation, and I would draw your attention to certainly the executive report, executive summary within that report, which contains some significant highlights and achievements of the quarter. There are 2 attachments to the report, councillors, with the first being a tracked change version with any changes to the operational plan requested in highlight. and the second attachment is a clean version of that for adoption. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, GM. Councillors, I am aware of some questions arising from the report, and Councillor Enright, I would invite you to raise some of those questions.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could, I have a question relating to page 11 of the attachment, so of the operational plan marked up copy.
So just for those following along, you'll find those attachments there on the website so that you can follow along. Thank you.
My question relates to the biodiversity strategy. The Habitat Protection Program is showing strong participation in new properties secured in Q2, with actual new properties of 14 compared to a target of 8, backing up on a strong Q1. I asked perhaps the General Manager of Customer and Regional Prosperity what has led to the increase in this participation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, councillors, executive and those in the gallery. Council has been observing actually an increase in the number of inquiries relating to becoming a member of the Habitat Protection Program, and these inquiries we're seeing are typically relating to new residents that have recently moved into the region. We think some of the themes that are emerging is that there are a range of new residents buying lifestyle properties for nature-based purposes and have an interest in better understanding in the plants and animals within their property. We're seeing that many of the residents have indicated that they are less experienced in rural property management and are seeking support where they may be from urban areas and they don't necessarily have the experience in managing a rural property. The new residents are hearing good things about the program through the word of mouth from our existing members and community members who participate, which seems to be increasing at the moment, its popularity, and so we welcome anybody who would like to participate in that program.
Thank you. Councillor Enright, you have a further question?
Thank you, Mayor. Also remaining on spectacular scenery and healthy environment on page 18. My question relates to the Water for Worrell project advocacy. I note the Queensland Government lodged a formal application to the Australian Government National Water Grid Authority for funding to prepare a preliminary business case and options analysis. How has Council supported the Water for Worrell project?
Thank you for your question, through you, Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor. We have reported previously on at ordinary meetings, I think the last time was in December 2020, around the funding that Council provided to engage the Jacob Group Australia to undertake the initial stage 1 demand assessment and the investment logic mapping to identify the demand assessment and the economic benefits analysis for the fixed price sum of $80,000 plus GST, which Council funded. Subsequently to the initial engagement, Council also engaged Jacobs as a variation to the initial agreement to undertake the phase 2 to progress this irrigation project. That was at a fixed sum of $20,000. $10,000 was funded through the Regional Prosperity Strategy implementation budget, and the balance was committed by the Water for Worrell irrigators towards phase 2 of that project. That was a significant block of work that enabled us to work with the Water for Worrell board to establish this project and prepare the information that was to be submitted to the state government in order for the state government to make an application to the Australian Government Water Grid Infrastructure Authority. Further to the Water for Worrell, recently the board representatives of Water for Worrell actually hosted the National Water Grid Authority and the Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water in region on the 7th of February to hear firsthand the experiences of producers and what the impacts of drought had on their both their operations, and in particular what the commitment of securing high securing high water, security water for agricultural production and how that would value add to their processing. The Queensland Government support for the project, as you are aware, they are the body that needs to submit this application. So they have now, as you said, Councillor, formally submitted that application on behalf of the Water for Worrell Group. The Water for Worrell Board has received confirmation that they will continue to work with the state government in order to facilitate the discussions with the Water Grid Authority and to ensure that the funding that they have asked for now as the third phase would help engage specialists to prepare a preliminary business case and options analysis for the Water for Worrell proposal to deliver secure and reliable water into the region's agricultural industry. The committee has been advised the application is likely to be considered in the first quarter of 2023, with successful projects expected to be announced as a part of the 2023 federal budget in May. And so we wish them well in their endeavours.
Thank you for that response. Councillor Enright, you have a further question?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, moving to page 20, under Sustainable and Prosperous Economy. The number of businesses and industry groups engaged in quarter 2 has grown substantially. Could you please expand on the ways that Council has engaged and partnered with businesses and industry through this quarter?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor. The team have advised that the number of ways that they've been engaging in this last quarter, or the quarter that this report relates to. The business breakfast that was held was very successful. We had over 100 attendees from the business community, and I think probably one of the strongest attendance at an event such as that in recent times. There's been attendance and engagement at all Chambers of Commerce and Destination Scenic Rim meetings that are held across the region. There's investment inquiries and concept meetings. Councillors would be aware that the Regional Prosperity Team plays a concierge process with developers and investment inquiries, and works with our planning team to assist anyone to navigate the organisation and what is required for them to invest and locate in the region. We have follow-up engagements. We work really closely with the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training, and we now facilitate with those the small business hubs where businesses have access to departmental staff and mentors. And of course the Oz Industry Entrepreneur Program, which has been really successful in the region, and we continue to support the federal government and its endeavours in working with local businesses in that program.
Thank you. Councillor, I note a further question. Councillor Enright.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, page 74, under Healthy, Engaged and Resourceful Communities. Under the heading of Identify, Deliver and Support Community Activities that Connect Residents to the Scenic Rim, activities have shown strong community engagement. What type of programs have been delivered, including events for our youth?
Thank you for your question, through you, Mayor. There's been an incredible amount of engagement actually right across the communities with a number of different programs, and I'll outline some that the team have provided to me today, including those that have touched working with our youth. We had over 570 people attend the Movies in the Park in December, which is a really great outcome. 270 people also attended the pool parties that we provided in December. The Youth Anthology, the State Library Queensland funded project, which includes fortnightly workshops at Bow Desert Library and Tamborine Mountain Library, saw a total of 12 sessions delivered. School holiday workshops at Bow Desert Library, Boonah Library and Tamborine Mountain Library had a total of 7 sessions. School workshops were run across the region with approximately 6 sessions also delivered. They engaged with children's authors to deliver workshops at Bow Desert Library, Boonah Library and Tamborine Mountain Library. The weekly children's program, there's Kids Club at the Bow Desert Library with crafts, science, games and stories delivered in those sessions. That's aimed at children 5 to 12, and each week we're seeing 10 to 15 children join those activities. We run a Lego club at the Tamborine Mountain Library each week, and 10 kids on average join. The school holidays also deliver weekly programs across each library, Beaudesert, Boonah, Canungra and Tamborine Mountain. During the school holidays, with over 100 activity packs that are handed out each week during the holidays for kids to be able to do at home. In the other outreach, in 2022, Scenic Rim Libraries attended 21 other outreach events and engaged with over 300 youth. This included school visits, family fun days and Queensland Day.
Thank you. Councillor, do you have any further questions on this report?
One last one on this attachment, thanks, Mayor. Through you, page 78. Under strengthen community volunteerism. What type of initiatives and programs have been run to strengthen community volunteerism?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor. We work with volunteers in many different ways, and as you know, a lot of the community organisations would not survive or thrive without the volunteer participation. So each year, Council hosts a volunteer thank you event at the centre here in Beaudesert. The last one was on the 8th of December to coincide with International Volunteers Day. We do that to personally thank all of the volunteers across the region who participate in many different activities that is a heartbeat of our community. Council also provided subsidised ticket prices for volunteers to attend events at the cultural centres as another mechanism of saying thanks. And volunteers also receive a regular newsletter to keep them connected to Council and the other local happenings that are occurring across the region. We encourage our community disaster volunteers who have signed up right across the Scenic Rim. We continue to touch base with those, and we also deliver training, and they participate in any disaster management exercises that we do across the region throughout the year to also ensure that they are trained and ready to provide any assistance that may be required during any of our disaster events. The cuppa in the community is also another way of reaching out to organisations and volunteers to keep them abreast of the programs that they can avail themselves of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, I may just pause there. We'll move back into the full report in a moment, but further on the attachments, Councillor West.
Thank you, Mayor. Just through you, I just had a question to the General Manager for ANES. We're on attachment under separate cover, attachment 2, and it's about the provision of buildings and facilities. And I just wanted to ask where we are with the leasing documentation, the standardisation, of leasing for our community groups, because it's very close to their hearts, of course.
Okay.
Just to put for clarity, I believe that's page 139 in the attachment for those who are trying to follow along.
My apologies, yes, that's right.
Through the Chair, thank you, Councillor West, for the question. First part of that is actually undertaking the infrastructure reviews, which is almost complete. A report will be provided to Council noting the contents of that review, which then will feed the further advice around the leasing documents and their update. I can say a considerable amount of work has been carried out on those leasing documents. This is the final piece, or near one of the final pieces that actually will aid the finalisation of those leasing documents.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor?
Look, I just have one more, actually, thank you, Mayor, through you, to the General Manager of Council Sustainability, and I'm on page 127, and I just wondered if you could give a bit of an update about the improving mobile coverage round that we are involved with, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I can provide a very quick update on that. I guess as a recap, as part of the 2022-2023 budget, the Australian Government committed $400 million to boost multi-carrier mobile coverage on regional roads, improve mobile coverage in underserved regional and remote communities, and increase the resilience of communications services and public safety communication facilities. Recently, as part of that, the Australian Government launched public consultation around the design of the round 3 of the applications to better suit and gain awareness of what types of black spots are requiring attention. More recently, we've just seen a funding round open, and that's called Improving Mobile Coverage Round. But there's $40 million attached to that particular program, but that's specifically aimed at 54 target locations across rural and regional remote Australia. And unfortunately, Scenic Rim wasn't included in that original 54. But we are awaiting the future rounds coming up that we're being consulted on. We currently have 145 locations in the Scenic Rim registered in the official mobile black spot database. And as further details of the future rounds, as soon as they come out, we'll certainly be awaiting those so that we can plan the appropriate applications and get the most bang for our buck when it comes to the Scenic Rim and addressing some of those. But at this stage, we're waiting on the Australian government to release those rounds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you. Through the chair to the CEO, if I could, on page 5 of the agenda. You can see the status table of the overall activities of the operational plan. Within that, it shows that 28 of the 127 themes require either monitoring or requires attention. Could you just give us your thoughts whether we'll be able to achieve this year's operational plan given the number of items that require monitoring or attention?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I've had a number of meetings with the staff in relation to what can be achieved. I'm fairly confident that things can be achieved within the required timeframes. The only usual encumbrances will be the weather, also the supply chains coming through in relation to materials, and the availability of staff or contractors, which all of those are, well, many of those are outside the direct control of council.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Enright, I believe you wish to ask a further question.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to General Manager of People and Strategy. And my question is on page 18 of the report, and it refers to recruitment. So I note in the report that Council has recruited over quarter 1, 33, and quarter 2, 28 new employees, so a total of 61 new employees for the first half of this financial year. Given the current challenging employment market, this number of appointments would take an enormous amount of effort for a relatively small team, so well done. My question is, in acknowledging the number of vacancies currently in the organisation, what is the ratio of employees to population compared to similar sized councils?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Enright. Through the chair, you can see from the trending statistics of recruitment that efforts to recruit skilled resources into the organisation have continued this quarter, with numbers of new recruits consistent with the levels of this time last year, and certainly continue to be high. That's a credit to what is actually a very small human resources team dedicated to that task. But it's important to note the efforts across the whole organisation that recruitment requires. For each recruitment process, there's a significant investment of time in review of applications and panel participation, and this creates a significant burden on our workforce. So I acknowledge all of the workforce that's involved in that. While our recruitment numbers are reflective of the high levels of turnover being experienced across local government more broadly, in terms of our budgeted positions, this is often compared with councils using a statistic which is the number of positions in our council per 100 capita of the population. So using that measure, council has approximately 0.9 budgeted positions for our per 100 capita of our population here at the Scenic Rim. When compared against other Category 3 councils, that sits us certainly below the average in terms of numbers of budgeted FTEs. I can't give you an exact response, councillor, in terms of the number of people we have in the organisation, because we have high numbers of casual workforce, of job share arrangements, etc., etc. So certainly the budgeted positions is a better measure of where we sit against other councils as far as the number of in far as the cost of our employees go.
Supplementary.
Thank you. Further
Just
questions?
further clarification, and thank you for that information. So the ratio refers to FTEs as a ratio to 100 people. Oh, yes, 100 people.
Yes,
In
correct.
our population. So
Yes.
Thank you. Right. Thank you for that. That's great work.
Thank you. Any further questions to the report, councillors? If not, we come to the
I have-
recommend.
sorry.
Councillor Enright. Yes.
Just catching up with those. Page 27. In purchasing and supplies, there's highlights the increase in local spend in the quarter. I just wonder if General Manager of Council Sustainability would be able to give an overview of items that funds were spent within through our local suppliers. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Enright. A really high synopsis overview of that, I guess. When I delved into the data and sorted it by expenditure to local suppliers over 50,000 or more, it showed 94 individual suppliers for a total of about 14 million. And of that, the top 6 suppliers range from earth-moving services, engineering consultancy, fuel, gravel material, plant hire and electrical services, and those top 6 amounted to about 9 million. So it's a wide range of products throughout the Scenic Rim, and certainly pleasing to see utilisation and discovery of some of those, so that local spend can be continued to support those local businesses where possible.
Thank you.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Enright.
Yep. On page 34, in relation to Youth Leadership Program, through you, Mayor, a question to the General Manager of Customer and Regional Prosperity. Could you please provide an overview of the level of participation from this year's Youth Leadership Program?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor. This year, 63 Year 10 students and 48 Year 6 students participated in Council's Youth Leadership Program. Councils will recall from the impacts of COVID, we needed to recalibrate how we deliver this, and the new condensed school-based format continues to work really well, and it actually allows more students to participate because we're delivering it in situ. The program is highly valued by the schools, and we've presented previously the positive feedback from teachers and principals, and this year again we've received extremely positive feedback from the teaching staff and principals, and so we're grateful for their ongoing acceptance and support of the delivery of this program.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor, you have further?
Page 35. My question relates to the video content in social media. What have been the outcomes from the increased use of videos in social media?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. We're delighted to see that the way the comms team has changed the delivery of some of the communications that they deliver each week. And the increased use of video content across the social media platforms has a significant impact on the engagement rates with our followers. In the last quarter alone, council videos received 19,000 views of that content, and this has helped to achieve a post reach of 907,000. There's been 21,000 click-throughs from organic social posts to Council's website. There's been 17,000 engagements with constituents across the region, 1.5 million page impressions as a result, and an increase in followers of over 11,000 people in this last quarter. These results are actually unprecedented for Council across the past 3 years, and I think it's credit to the new team that we have on board and the way in which they are mixing up the communication channels that we're utilising.
Great.
Thank you.
One last
Further?
question.
Yes, Councillor.
Page 36. In relation to the RADF, Regional Arts Development Fund Launchpad high school visits. What level of response has been received from the high school visits?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor. The visits to the Beaudesert High School, Macaulay College and Tamborine Mountain College have seen actually 7 applications come forward for the Launchpad grants. 3 have been successful, 1 was unsuccessful, and 2 are currently being assessed, and we'll know a result for them in March.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? If not, can we move to the recommendation for this report? Introduce, please, GM.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is that Council adopt amendments to the Operational Plan 2022 to 2023 as contained within the Draft Operational Plan 2022-2023 Quarter 2 Progress Report. That Council endorse the Operational Plan 2022-2023 Quarter 2 Progress Report, and that Council endorse the Service Delivery Performance Report 2022 to 2023 Quarter 2.
Thank you. Councillors, I seek a mover. Councillor Enright. Further discussion? If not, I seek a seconder. Councillor McConnell. Wish to speak further? Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I would like to speak to this motion. I think this operational plan report shows progress of what we have achieved and shows the enormity of the areas of impact across our region in assistance for our community. I also note that there are some amendments that have to be adopted to maintain that flexibility for us to deliver. As the CEO mentioned, there are some elements outside our control, so I acknowledge the work that the team has done in providing that flexibility and ability to deliver under challenging circumstances. So I would like to close in thanking all of our council staff for their commitment to our communities. Thank you for the leadership in allowing us to deliver these programs over this quarter.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Enright. I think the operational plan, which only details up until December and not today, which we have to remember, although it has its challenges, as all councils do, I have faith that the GMs and the CEO will be able to bring the number of monitor and requires attention down, and we'll be able to get through as much as this operational plan as we can. So congratulate the GMs on the effort done so far. Thank you.
Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? I will just take the opportunity. I concur with those prior thoughts, and particularly given the challenging circumstance both through this year with the continued aftermath of floods. We easily forget that the first half of the year up until Christmas was marred by continuing events and continuing challenges, and this year we still have a lot of those recovery activities on top of what was our, if you like, forecast plan when we put the operational plan together. We face the same challenges as you've heard earlier of supply chain to, as well as for suitable resources there's high competition for, and it's a credit to the organisation to be able to deliver the focus not just in the operational plan, but certainly to the ongoing delivery of core services to the level that are there. And I applaud the tireless efforts of our team right across the organisation. They sometimes get a bad rap on some parts of social media, but in fact they do a sterling body of work, and this report demonstrates that. Thank you. You wish to close, Councillor? We put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 10.2 on page 45 of today's agenda, and GM, I'll invite you to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. It's with pleasure that we present this item. It's actually an action in the operational plan that we were just discussing. Item 10.2 is the Scenic Rim E-Plan launch and adoption of the administrative amendment to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, Amendment number 5. I have with me some officers today that are going to discuss this, so I'd like to hand over to the Principal Specialist of Strategic Planning, Heather, who's going to introduce this item and just give Council a brief update, noting that you have read the report.
Thank you, Deborah. So the strategic planning team is very excited to be publishing the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme on the ePlan platform. The new ePlan allows customers to view the scheme and mapping in a single interactive platform to assist with the self-servicing of town planning inquiries. Most notably, the platform can create a property report which outlines the zoning and overlay information relevant only to the search property. Pre-formatted code templates can also be downloaded to support development applications, and this will greatly assist customers with the preparation of development application material. So from this Friday, the 24th of February, the ePlan platform can be accessed via Council's website, and it will replace the current way the planning scheme is viewed, including the existing mapping tool. The ePlan is both PC and mobile friendly, and the platform is subject to an annual accessibility audit to meet web accessibility standards. To ensure the accurate display of planning scheme information on the ePlan, an administrative amendment to the planning scheme has been prepared to have effect on the 24th of February. The administrative amendment involves an update to the property boundary layer shown on the zone maps and an improved way of displaying land within a zone precinct. The previous property boundary layer in the planning scheme, or the DCDB, was dated December 2019, and the administrative amendment will use the January 2023 layer to show the updated property boundaries in our region. To support customers using this ePlan, council officers will be providing demonstrations at upcoming cuppa in the community events, and council officers can also provide support to customers over the phone or at the counter during business hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, any points for clarification to the report, firstly? Councillor McConnell, question?
Thank you. Through the chair to the officer. In regards to the training or the advice to residents, they'll be able to just call up the help desk, or will there be activities throughout the shire, throughout the council area or the region that will assist people?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. So we'll be available, so strategic planners will be available at community cuppa sessions. So there's about 15 to 20 of those commencing mid-March. The first one's in Roadvale. And officers will be there with a laptop to show how the ePlan's used, and they can provide information about a property report, so we can show a customer how to search their own property and use the ePlan that way. Also, our customer service team has been trained to use the ePlan platform, so in the first instance they would be able to assist customers over the phone, but strategic planning is also there as a secondary point of contact to help customers work through the new platform. I guess the message is it's very intuitive, it's easy to use, so most people who are used to using these web-based platforms are not likely to have any issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Enright?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, thank you, Heather, for that introduction. On a practical application, how will the features of the ePlan platform, like the property reports and the pre-formatted code templates, assist landowners or development application process?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So currently, when you look at the planning scheme online, you cannot just bring up your own property and get all the zoning and overlay information that's relevant to your property. You need to go through the planning scheme and know how that information applies. So the e-plan will bring up your property if you type in the address or the lot and plan, and it will show you on a property report the zoning that applies and only the relevant overlays on a map. So it really shows you exactly what parts of the planning scheme apply to your land. And the code templates that you can download are the ones that are relevant to the development application that you are trying to apply for with council, and it will show you the development criteria that you need to use, and you can type it into these Word templates so that it's easier to make your development application properly made.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Sorry, if not, then we turn to the recommendation, please, Gian.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you, for your consideration today, councillors, is a recommendation that 1, Council endorse the publication of the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 using the e-plan platform with an indicative launch date of 24 February 2023. And 2, that Council adopt the attached administrative amendment to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, described as Amendment Number 5, in accordance with the Planning Act 2016 and Chapter 2, Part 1 of the Minister's Guidelines and Rules, version 1.1.
Thank you. Seeker mover, Councillor McConnell. Any further discussion, councillors?
Through you, Mayor, can I just make a comment that it's pleasing to see this project delivered within budget and on time. Well done to the staff who've provided that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I seek a seconder. Councillor West. Councillor McConnell, you wish to speak?
Thank you, through the Chair. We've looked forward to this for a long time. It's been a struggle for council staff to be able to handle the number of queries from residents and be able to get back to them in a timely manner. So the ability for any resident to come in, to be at home, log on, search their property, understand what they can and can't do in regards to code and development applications, look at flood levels and all that is, I think, will be a game changer, especially for the staff in regards to their load on queries. So I fully support the efforts that the staff have put in to be able to bring this to the residents, and I'm sure that everyone out there will be happy that they don't have to send an email and wait, and will be able to just sit at home, log on. And I think it'll also help prospective buyers as well. They'll be able to have a look at the property and search for any issues that may arise. So I thank the staff and for their efforts, and it's well done.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor West.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just want to acknowledge the planning team who've worked incredibly hard on this project. It's kind of been on the horizon for a long time, but eventually it's come to fruition, so well done. And as has mentioned, I believe it is a game changer when it comes to the planning scheme, and certainly will be very welcomed by the community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else seeking leave to speak additionally? If not, Councillor, you wish to close?
I need to say well done again to the planning staff as well as the manager. I know that Mark isn't here, but it's been a team effort, and congratulate you on the work that's been achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll therefore put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next matter will take further time, so I am going to adjourn now for a morning tea, councillors, and we will return at 10:45 to continue our deliberations today. Thank you. councillors. I'm conscious that we have a digital gallery who are trying to follow along. I'm presuming John will be escorting back any returning physical gallery. You have a physical gallery to return? Thank you. We turn to the consideration, councillors, of item 10.3 on page 57 of today's agenda. GM.
Thank you, Chair. Before you today, item 10.3 is the MCU 21/117. It's the development permit for material change of use at tourist attraction, planetarium and short-term accommodation of 6 cabins at 379 to 385 Long Road, Tamborine Mountain. Today, to provide an overview and the highlights of this application, we have the Acting Manager of Regional Development, Health and Biodiversity, Joe Kirkwood, who has assumed that councillors have read the report, so we're just going to give you a few of those highlights that we wanted to discuss today.
Thank you, Deborah, and good morning, Council. In relation to this development, so I just would like to touch on the main points and highlight how effectively, whilst the proposed development generally complies with the technical requirements of the planning scheme, the development itself does conflict with some of the higher order strategic outcomes sought for tourism development in the rural zone. The extent of non-compliance with the planning scheme is summarised as follows. The proposed development is not small scale as anticipated for tourist attractions at Tamborine Mountain. The proposed development does not facilitate diversification or value-adding opportunities that support agricultural production for the rural zone. And the proposed tourist attraction is not ancillary or subordinate to any rural activity on the same site. The non-compliances with the relevant assessment benchmarks are acknowledged by assessment officers. However, these non-compliances are considered to have little to no consequence on the surrounding area in the context of the site. The scale of the development is larger than that anticipated for the zone. The consequences of the scale in this case are limited to visual impact and traffic. Traffic generation was addressed in the traffic report, which reported that at peak times there would be 36 vehicles entering and leaving the site. This will be a substantial generator of traffic on Long Street. However, it is noted that the traffic counts indicate Long Road carries approximately 28,000 vehicles on a Sunday. Long Road is identified as a collector road in the planning scheme and currently provides access to a number of other tourist attractions in the area as well as the sporting ground. The estimated traffic generation is based on the total operating capacity for the development, which is expected to at 100,000 persons per year and which is unlikely to be realised in the first year of its operation. Road upgrades have been recommended by council engineers in the form of pavement widening and the applicant for access in and out of the property. The extent of the traffic associated with the proposed use is considered acceptable given the context of the site and the upgrades proposed in the conditions of approval. In relation to the visual impacts, it is noted that the tourist attraction are a use which is anticipated in the zone and pre-same. The context of the site is influenced by other nearby tourist attractions in the sports complex on the other side of the road. The built form does not exceed the height limit in the rural zone, so that's 8.5 metres in height, above the natural ground level. The location of the main building is below the level of the road when viewed, and the built form has been broken into different components and is further softened by landscaping between the road and the building. The proposed development is not expected to result in an unacceptable visual impact on the character of the area. Other conflicts with the planning scheme are in relation to the nature of use and association with rural activities. The land on which the development is proposed is not currently used for any high-intensity rural activities and is likely too small to make a meaningful contribution to rural production at Tamborine Mountain. Therefore, it is unlikely to be any consequence of loss of this land to rural production. In addition to these conflicts and the considerations provided, other relevant matters have been identified favouring an approval, which are summarised as the proposed development has particular land requirements that are unlikely to be met within the existing tourism zoned land at Tamborine Mountain. The context of the site is influenced by other tourist attractions and adjacent sports field. There is an existing approval for a function facility and short-term accommodation over the land, which has not been enacted. The proposed development will bring economic advancement for its construction and operation, serve as an educational function for locals and tourists, support and enhance existing tourism ventures at Tamborine Mountain, and create additional direct and indirect jobs for the community. And no adverse town planning consequences are anticipated that would arise from identified non-compliances within the assessment benchmarks. The application being impact assessment was also subject to public notification. During the notification period, 15 properly made submissions were received in support and 5 in objection. 5 not properly made submissions were also received in support and 7 in objection, and 1 not properly made submission was received which was neutral to the development. The key matters raised by submitters have been summarised in the report and considered on relevant planning grounds within the planning scheme. On balance, it is recommended that the application be approved subject to reasonable and relevant conditions in Appendix A, and in consideration of the relevant matters outlined in the report favouring approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Points of clarification. First off, councillors. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you. Through the chair to the officer, if you could just clarify your comments about the traffic count on Sundays being 28,000. Would that be for the per annum?
On a Sunday, it would likely be per day. I can take that on notice, though. I'll just check through the report and then...
28,000's
Oh, sorry, 2,800, sorry, I apologise.
Okay.
Through the chair, 2,800, sorry, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. I had that question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One extra zero.
Yeah, apologies.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further clarifications, councillors? Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thank you, Officer. Can I just clarify, please, the number of car parks in the conditions is listed at 62. Does that include 6 for the cabins?
Thank you, Councillor. And through the chair, I'll just confirm. I'll just look through in terms of that reference. Thank you, Councillor. And through the chair, so a total of 61 spaces will be provided, including 5 bays for park for staff as part of the exhibition building, 2 bus bays and a passenger set-down area, but further 6 parking bays will be provided at the rear of the planetarium as part of stage 2 for the cabins. In addition, yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other clarifications, councillors? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you. Through the chair to the officer, if I could, please. In regards to the gross floor area, I think it's called, is it 9 times? From what I've worked out, it's about 9 times what's within the scheme. But because of the location, we're allowing that to go through.
Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So in relation to the threshold in terms of a gross floor area, the scheme doesn't envision in terms of every scenario, in terms of the context of the site. It is a acceptable outcome sort. So in relation to what's being proposed in this instance is an alternative solution which is considered against the performance outcome. And it is very much on the balance with the planning scheme as a whole being an impact assessment application. So it's not as narrowed to that specific provision.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. Further clarifications, councillors? If not, thank you. I'll proceed to the introduction of the recommendation for this item.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, before you is a recommendation that 1, Council receive and note the report titled MCU 21/117 Development Permit for Material Change of Use, Tourist Attraction, Planetarium and Short-Term Accommodation 6 Cabins at 379 to 385 Long Road, Tamborine Mountain 4272. That 2, Council approve Development Application MCU 21/117 despite the non-compliances with the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020, subject to imposition of reasonable and relevant conditions in Appendix A and in consideration of the following relevant matters favouring approval. A, the non-compliances with the planning scheme will have little to no consequence on the surrounding area. B, the proposed development has particular land requirements that are unlikely to be met within the existing tourism zone land at Tambray Mountain. C, the context of the site is influenced by other tourist attractions and adjacent sports fields. D, there is an existing approval for a function facility and short-term accommodation over the land. E, the loss of rural land is unlikely to make meaningful impact to supply of rural land or rural production generally at Tambray Mountain or elsewhere in the region. And F, the development serves an educational function for locals and tourists. And 3, that council note any subsequent requests for negotiated decision notice and or change applications to the approval MCU 21/117 will be processed via delegated authority where the changes would not significantly alter the original decision.
Councillor Mover, Councillor McConnell. Further questions? Further discussion, councillors? I seek a seconder. Councillor Chalk. Councillor McConnell, you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, through the chair. I looked at this, and it's good to see a tourist attraction that is in the appropriate location that won't affect the neighbouring properties. I note that some of the non-compliances don't meet the planning scheme. But as I've said before, people should have the right to do what they want on their property as long as it doesn't affect their neighbours. And I think this is a good use of the land in that location. As much as it's rural, it's not going to be a productive environment for growing veggies or cattle. And I look forward to seeing a prosperous tourist attraction grow on that location without affecting its neighbours, or it's actually going to enhance the neighbourhood given the other tourist attractions that are there. So I will be supporting this motion.
Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's worthy of noting the process that's been followed, and I thank the diligence of our officers in assessing this, particularly, given it's in a rural area, assessing it, the application against that process, looking at the ways that the application has been assessed, and providing conditions that make this minimising any impact on the surrounding areas. And I note the upgrade to road and footpaths, so that does mitigate that problem. So I think it shows that this, when followed through an appropriate process by dealing with each of these points, is the correct way to address these.
Thank you. Anyone else seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor West.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just want to add, although it's looking a wonderful tourism development, but also the educational side I think is very important. There's a number of schools up in that area and surrounding the area, and just for people within our region to have a planetarium like this without having to go outside the region to be able for educational purposes is fantastic.
Thank you. Anyone else seeking leave to speak? Councillor McConnell, you wish to close?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 10.4 on page 120 of today's agenda. GM, we turn to you again for an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. Item 10.4 is the 2022-2023 Regional Events Grant Program application for the award-winning Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular for their 2023 event. And I have with me the Manager of Regional Prosperity and Communications, who will provide us an overview of this report. John.
Sorry, just pause. We have a member of the gallery who's wishing to depart. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you very much, General Manager, councillors, executive and those listening online. As Deborah alluded, this report presents an application to Council's Regional Events Grants Program and a recommendation for a total support of $20,000 combined of both cash and in kind to assist with event management and delivery of the 2023 staging of the Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular, which will be held on the 17th to 18th of June 2023. This is a signature event for our region that has grown tremendously, particularly over the last few years. In 2022, it attracted 6,728 people from outside the region over 2 days, up about 2,500 from the prior year, brings in around $2 million in economic contribution, and a significant number of those people actually stay for a number of nights when they come to our region. It's growing in popularity, particularly with the camping and caravanning market from other states, which is just fantastic because those people do come and do stay and do spend. The rest of it is there in the report, but obviously as well, recently award-winning, picking up a silver award for Best Event or Festival in the Grey Nomad Awards, which is a great accolade for them as well.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions for clarification to the report you have in front of you? If not, thank you. It is a good report. We introduce the recommendation, please, GM.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, for your consideration is one, that Council approve the application from Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular Subcommittee of the Boonah Show Society Incorporated to 2022-2023 Regional Events Grant Program for the 2023 Scenic Rim Clydesdale Spectacular being held in Boonah on the 17th to 18th of June 2023. And two, that Council approve a maximum of $20,000 cash and in kind as follows. A cash contribution of $12,580 plus GST. B, a contribution of $2,420 towards the provision of waste bins by Council. And C, in-kind support to the value of $5,000 of marketing and public relations services.
Just note the wording in the recommendation is cash grant rather than cash contribution. Can you just confirm which of those words is correct?
That's confirmed, Mayor. It is a cash grant of $12,580 plus GST. Thank you.
Thank you. I seek a mover. Councillor Chalk. Thank you. Any further questions, further discussion, councillors? Seek a seconder. Councillor McGuinness. Councillor Chalk, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak on this recommendation. I think it's money very well spent. It's a great event that's held in our region. It's been born from the Boonah Show Society and their subcommittee through the Clydesdale Spectacular, a very hard-working group of local people with great family and roots to our region and the heritage of our region. It goes to show, highlight what our region's all about and our heritage in this region, and it shows people who visit the real core of what our communities are all about. And I wish them all the best for this year and ongoing years, that they have successful events, and recommend this to the other councillors. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor McInnes.
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to add, and I fully endorse the comments of Councillor Chalk there, but it also adds a lot of other value to other businesses in the area. There's so many outsiders, as we heard from the manager, coming to the area, and they don't just go to the Clydesdale Spectacular, they go elsewhere and spend their dollars, and it's just another way of our tourists sort of spreading them around. It's a reason to come, and so often a lot of people stay for at least one night, if not more than that, and once again adds value to our businesses.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else seeking leave? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will speak and endorse the comments made by Councillor Chalk and Councillor McGuinness. I did go again this year, and it was again a great community feel in there. It wasn't like a tourist attraction. It was like going to a small country town and meeting all the locals. So I think the support that we provide in regards to the grant and the in-kind support greatly assists the smaller, it's not smaller, a group now, but it's a good country committee that do it. And I do endorse the officer's comments of do come, do stay and do spend. So I think that was a good slogan that we may have to put out there as well. So I like Councillor Chalk and Councillor McGuinness, I fully endorse this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else seeking leave to speak additionally? I will take the opportunity. This is certainly an event that's growing in strength. It's because it's run exceptionally professionally by a passionate group of people. It's gained international recognition, certainly well deserved, and this year is likely to take that to another level. I think it's particularly important as a further example of the activities in the region where we celebrate and respect our history, and ensuring we maintain contact with that is a really important part of how we get the right context for having a modern but well-connected and well-founded community. It's a cornerstone event, and look forward to seeing how it interacts with the newly expanded Eat Local month as they run in conjunction and can indeed give a fantastic synergistic storyline for our region. Anyone else seeking leave before I turn back to Councillor Chalk? You wish to close?
Yeah, I'll just like to endorse Councillor McGuinness's comments about the effects on the rest of the region and encourage our region to really support it and be available to help. And on that note, I'd also like to acknowledge the volunteers that contribute to the event. It certainly takes a village to put this event on, and the locals really support it and get behind it and help it out. So I'd like to just acknowledge them and encourage them to once again support it this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 10.5, and I ask on page 124 of your agendas, Councillor, and I ask the GM, Council Sustainability, to introduce.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 10.5 is a monthly financial report for January 2023. I will take it that the report has been read and just disclose the following items. One, we are now 7/12 into the financial year, and as such, continuing to deliver up-to-date reporting on the current financial year, along with timely preparations for the 2023-2024 financial year budget. The standard deviations consistent with prior months continue, but I will add that as part of the December budget review, we will look to recalibrate some of those metrics with updated forecasts through until 30th of June. Additionally, one of the significant activities as of January 2023 has been the levying of the second half rates levy, which certainly impacts some of the surplus positions with council, as we recognise 2 points in the financial year where the main revenue is recognised. Lastly, Mr Mayor, the standard assurance that council has met its statutory and financial obligations for the month of January is also important. Outside of that, Mr Mayor, open for any particular queries from anybody.
Thank you, GM. Points for clarification, councillors. Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the General Manager. Just in relation to the net operating surplus, it's pleasing to see that fees and charges have increased and interest received has also increased. Other than these fees and charges at $704,000 and interest received at $202,000, is the increased surplus more associated with timing of revenue and expense payments than performance against budget?
GM.
Through you, Mr Mayor, And to answer your question, Councillor Enright, generally yes. As I mentioned before, one of the main factors evident in the January financial report is the recognition of the second half rates levy. But there is, what I point out also, consistent with the prior months, some general operational underspend that as part of the December budget review, officers and through their general managers are reviewing those to ensure a proper forecast throughout through until the 30th of June is recognised. But generally there's some operational underspend, and that's been discussed previously to a factor of resourcing, staff availability, and weather impacts.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Enright again.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you again to the General Manager in relation to capital expenditure. Is the lower expenditure than budget due more to the timing of the projects than a reduction in the CapEx?
I may rely on my fellow General Manager for Asset and Environmental Sustainability, but I'll give a financial aspect first. What you see in the monthly reporting is purely financial, and that's really reliant on some best knowledge forecasted delivery of those projects. So the monthly financial report, just reflects that what was originally phased for delivery as part of the 2022-2023 financial year has been set as a metric, and the actual expenditure shows what was actually expended. Now through one reason or another, there may be some disruptions to that service delivery, and that can be provided by not in great details at this forum, but certainly from General Manager Asset and Environmental Sustainability.
Through the Mayor, I can certainly agree with the comments made by my fellow GM. There are some other complications around pricing, and some of the projects, when we've gone out to tender, have actually come in above what was anticipated or budgeted, and that's certainly being taken into account when we look at the the December budget review. I'll probably draw your attention more particularly to the black spot funding round, where when we first put this together, it was anticipated we'd be substantially completed by this point in time. Unfortunately, due to pricing, we had to postpone that delivery. There are some other projects very similar to this that we need to certainly look further at with regard to deliver the scope. The costs have actually increased, which isn't something that is unique to us as an organisation. Certainly there's some recent press about some of the bigger announcements around budget blowouts within other forms of government, so without drawing attention to those. So that's probably a higher level comment that I'd make with regard to some of the timing of the projects. And it's not just in one area, as you can see if you look at the page in the capital report. There's quite a number of areas where there's been a delay to refocus on what can be delivered or what is required to ensure the scope is delivered appropriately.
Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, and in addition to that, it's important to note from a financial aspect in the budget process that when Council does adopt an annual budget, some of those projects are delivered over multiple years, and as such, there is no expectation to deliver the full program within the 12 months of financial year, and some of those projects do require that forecasting out beyond the current financial year.
Could I just ask a clarification question to that? To convert that comment, if I'm interpreting that correctly with a lay person lens, we have to show the total value in the financial accounts, even though we're expecting that much of it will be carried forward into another year to actually deliver. That's the way we have to do with the accounting.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further questions for clarity, councillors? Otherwise, yes, Councillor Enright.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the General Manager again, and this is perhaps similar to the question I raised in the Q2 operational plan, but in the council expenditure by location, it's pleasing to see the local spend in the Scenic Room is at around 90% of total spending in January. Would you have a higher level indication of the type of local expenditure in this month?
I'll provide the same response as I did previously. I think, in the top 6 suppliers that's listed within the Scenic Rim, that equated about $9 million in total expenditure amongst those 6 suppliers. They range from earth moving services to plant hire to gravel material, engineering, consultancy services, as well as electrical services. I will add that there is further potential in exploring other avenues of activating further local spend, and that will certainly be part of a continued effort.
Thank you. Further clarities? If not, introduce the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation for item 10.5 is that Council receive the unaudited financial statements for the period ended 31 January 2023 for the financial year 2022-2023.
Seek a mover. Councillor Enright. Further questions, councillors? Further discussion? Seek a seconder. Councillor Chalk. Councillor Enright, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts in providing the detail of this report. It shows that we're travelling quite well despite the challenging environment, and thank the officers for their continued hard work and providing this visibility through this report.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? If not, we'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 10.6. And GM, we're with you again on page 138 for those following along.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, councillors, this is a really quick update as to the recently the Queensland Government called upon any submissions towards the proposed changes to electoral spends as per the local government electorate and other legislation's expenditure caps amendment bill 2022. This is just to provide update there that we've since received correspondence from the Director General of the Department of Local Government advising of the submissions that were put forward. Just note that there were no submissions put forward by Council itself, and it's there just for a update, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, GM. Councillors, any questions to that? We'll get to a point where you can have a discussion, but any points for clarification to what's in the report? If not, I'll just get you to introduce the recommendation, GM.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, for 10.6 is that Council acknowledge the update on the proposed local government electoral expenditure caps.
Thank you. I seek a mover. Councillor Chalk. Any further questions, discussion? Councillors, I might open discussion as you read through the comments, the observations from various parties and the response from the department. It does seem to be a very imbalanced landscape in many aspects. Perhaps that confusion comes from trying to deal with mega councils as well as regional councils in the same structure of thinking, and it certainly poses some real challenges that will, I think, create a really confusing landscape for a lot of people, particularly for anyone who's either been a candidate before or been a successful candidate before. Some of those interpretations at the moment are quite confusing, and it's to be hoped that that they actually spend some time out of William Street and out with local electorates as they come to a conclusion of this, to make sure this can work rationally and sensibly, because it's just another burden of bureaucracy in the way it's currently seeming to be responded to. Would be just a piece of discussion. Any other discussion, councillors? Councillor McGuinness?
Totally concur with your thoughts, Mayor. It's you wonder at the agenda of some of these things, and there's an old saying: you work out the agenda and you work out why people say what they say, and it's not helpful. And given the track record of what we've had to deal with in the last couple of years, 3 years, this is just another impost on getting the correct councillors and getting a wide variety of people to put their hand up for the next council election.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, I'll seek a seconder. Councillor West? Whoops, almost. You can't do it twice, councillor. You wish to speak to your motion, councillor? Anyone wishing to speak to the motion? If not, we put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. We have one item of confidential business before us today, item 11.1, and that's closed under section 254J3G at this time, and I therefore seek a motion to move into confidential session. Councillor McGuinness, second to Councillor West. Any discussion, councillors? Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you to those in the gallery. It's now 11:22. We will endeavour to return on the quarter hour if we're able to as we progress through this matter. So keep listening around for each quarter hour mark. Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, I seek a motion to return into open session. Councillor McConnell, seconded Councillor Chalk. Any discussion, councillors? Put the motion, those in favour. Thank you, councillors. We now return into open session. We have one matter before us, item 11.1. GM, would you please introduce this and the associated recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go straight into the recommendation, and I've just noticed an error in reference in points 2 and 3. Should read Police Citizens Youth Club. In items 2 and 3 it says centre. So I'll read that as club. The recommendation for this item is 1. Council acknowledge that a preferred site located in Beaudesert for the establishment of a Police Citizens Youth Club has been identified, and 2. Council acknowledge the need for further investigations and actions to ensure compliance with the Land Act SLM/2013/493 for the establishment of a Police Citizens Youth Club within this identified preferred site. 3. Council note that at the appropriate time, community engagement will be undertaken to advise of the final outcome of the intention to utilise the preferred location, subject to the outcomes of further investigations regarding the preferred site for purposes of establishing a Police Citizens Youth Club in Beaudesert. And 4, in accordance with clause 22.3.6.3.
Sorry, could you just reread that?
Oh, sorry.
Part 4.
In accordance with clause 22.6.3 of the Scenic Rim Regional Council Standing Orders Procedure CM 03.01 PR.01, Council maintain confidentiality over the content of the report due to negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which, as public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government, noting that, as per the previous resolution of Council dated 5th July 2022, item 10.2, that the preferred location be discussed with the identified stakeholders as outlined in this report.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, I seek a mover. Councillor Enright. Any further discussion, councillors? Seek a seconder. Councillor McConnell. Wish to speak, Councillor Enright?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, very happy to support this motion. It outlines another important step towards the establishment of a Police Citizens Youth Club in Beaudesert following due process.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone seeking leave to speak additionally? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you. I'll reiterate Councillor Enright's comments and note that although it will be located in Beaudesert, it will be a regional asset for all the residents and the community.
Anyone else seeking leave to speak? Councillor Enright wishing to close. Thank you. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That brings me to the close of agenda items for today's meeting. For those who have joined us in the digital gallery, thank you for your patience with some of our interludes and those times in confidential. Appreciate your participation and bid you good day. And councillors, I declare the meeting closed at 11:49.